Welcome back to the channel. My name's Dan.
I'm Matt.
He's
Hello.
back.
I'm back.
So good to have
Oh.
you here.
A day.
Yeah. A lot of our new subs might not know who you are.
No, and that's probably for the best.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Matt. Usually he's on the channel, but he's been off it for a little bit because of jobs and stuff like that. But he's back today. We're going to talk about The Invisible Man. So The Invisible Man tells the story of an invisible man who stalks his ex, and that's pretty much all you need to know.
I want to see you in a pitch meeting now.
Get this.
I have a cracking new idea.
But yeah, so it's kind of a horror thriller. It's got some kind of action elements in there as well. And Elizabeth Moss plays the main character, and basically she's in an abusive relationship. So she leaves, and then she starts to get stalked by an invisible man. She has to kind of try and prove it, and everyone around her doesn't believe her and thinks she's kind of going crazy. And it's just about that, and it just kind of starts slow and builds up to the point where it's kind of a big action scene.
Yeah, it's very similar to other films. Like The Invisible Man isn't its unique premise. We've had films like Hollow Man. We've had TV series based on like The Invisible Man, and way back in the 1930s there was an Invisible Man film.
There's been loads of them.
Yeah,
Right.
but this one was quite good. It was very focused on just Elizabeth Moss's character. You had all the side characters, but the main focus was on Elizabeth Moss and her inner turmoil. When she was almost facing this threat alone, no one was going to believe her, because who would believe in an invisible man? Especially when like the whole purpose of the plot is focused on how he is supposedly already dead.
To be honest though, I think, like, because everyone says like, oh, you wouldn't believe them, but if the person in question was the world leader in optics, you might. Yeah, so Elizabeth Moss is obviously the main character, and really the whole movie kind of rests on her shoulders, and luckily she gives a very good performance. There's a lot of scenes where, because he's invisible, she's not acting alongside another actor, so it's just her in a room, essentially just talking to an empty space, freaking out or getting hysterical, and that could be really bad if it wasn't done exactly right. But it is done exactly right, and it makes some really effective horror.
You said it earlier off camera, she's very good at playing really crazy characters.
Yeah, someone should give her like a nice chilled out comedy or something.
Yeah.
She's always just like in the most intense movies.
Someone put her in like the new series of Weeds or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. But yeah, she's very. The film starts with a very tense scene, and from there it never really lets up. It's just constantly intense. Which, if you think about it, it kind of puts you in the headspace of that character, because if you were being stalked by an invisible man, you'd always be on the lookout. And so throughout the whole film, there's never really that scene that's shot in daylight and it's all happy and gives you that break. It's just constantly intense.
But that's where the film works though, because it gives you the impression that he is always there.
Yeah.
Like, while some horror films may focus on nighttime escapades, this guy is there all the time, 24/7, slowly driving her insane. And it's almost like a journey of watching her descent into madness.
Yeah.
And I think she pulls off like all the stages very well. Like, she almost has the false hope that she's safe, she's got a new life, you know, she can move on from him. But there's always that lingering thought at the back of her head that he hasn't left her alone, and he is haunting her.
Yeah, and the sound design and the camera work really helped to, obviously because there's not an actual actor there, the camera work and the camera work and the sound design, they kind of help to, they're almost part of the character.
Yeah.
And so like there'll be times, like one thing I thought was really good about the film is the layout of the main house. It's like very open plan, and there's like lots of places where it could be, like lots of doors that you're kind of always looking for to open, and there's lots of like dark corners and empty seats and stuff. So, you know, like she'll walk in a room and there'll be a big wide shot and she'll be over here, and you can't, you know he's there somewhere, but you're like, well, it's scary because it could be anywhere there and you don't know where.
Yeah, I love the camera work in this film. There's some shots where it'll just like show you the scale of the room or the location that she is in. And a lot of it is so barren and bare that you just think he could be anywhere.
Yeah, that's what's scary. Because you're constantly looking around, because they kind of stage it in such a way where there'll be like a door here, so you're like, okay, that could open, and then there'll be like, say, a knife here, and you're like, okay, that could get picked up. Like you're looking around the frame constantly, like, okay, where is he? What's going to move? And sometimes nothing does move, which is really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only thing I would say though is it's clear from very early on that the Invisible Man definitely exists and is there. Like there's undeniable proof, not to the other characters, but to the audience, he definitely is there because there's just unexplainable stuff, but he's definitely there. And something I think would have been nice to see is if maybe until a midpoint, if things happened, but that could be explained like rationally, so you weren't really sure if he was going insane or if he was there. I think I would have liked to see a bit of like ambiguity there because it would have kind of been questionable.
Well, there were some moments where they did almost fake you out for it. And it's as you said earlier, it's the camera work. The camera may pan to like a different point in the room where there's literally nothing happening, and there's nothing there, or is there? And then the characters will like walk into frame like a good 5-10 seconds later, and it's just like, have I just been looking at the place where this invisible man supposedly is?
Yeah.
It really gets you on edge. It's really good at building tension. I thought it was brilliant.
It was very effective.
As you said, the sound design as well, like just like the slow, like dull thuds. Like any kind of sound you hear in a scene, you just think that could be him or that could be like. It's just really good at making you question like whether this is a moment to be afraid or it's just a false herring.
Yeah, the film also, because it opens with a scene where she's trying to basically escape from somewhere. Every noise is amplified, like every little creak of a floorboard or anything like that is mega amplified. Which for a second I was like, oh, they've kind of gone overboard with the sound design. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, that's how it's going to sound to her because she's desperately hoping to make no noise. So every little noise is going to be amplified. So yeah, I found that really effective. And there were a couple of jump scares as well, but they were done well. Like I didn't feel like there was any cheap jump scares.
Yeah, it didn't rely on jump scares.
No, not at all.
It was good.
There was only 2 or 3 throughout the whole film, I think.
Yeah.
And they were all well done.
We had Storm Reid playing a 15, 16-year-old girl, and Aldous Hodge, who played her dad. They were the family that Elizabeth Moss's character takes refuge with at the beginning of the film. And I thought their performances were really good as well. Storm Reid, like for such a young actor, she has so much potential. She was really good.
And he was a really likable character as well.
Yeah. He was one of those characters where you don't want to see anything bad happen to him. He just seems like a really cool guy to be around.
Because he's the only person really that he doesn't necessarily believe her when she starts saying, I think there's an invisible man.
But he doesn't want to not believe.
Yeah, he kind of toes that line well. And he's kind of there for her, but at the same time, it creates there's enough doubt in his mind where she doesn't feel safe. But he's a really likable character. He takes her in, helps her out, and there's a little bit where she's kind of before she starts being stalked, she still has like PTSD from being in this abusive relationship, and he's like really good at handling that. And yeah, like you say, Storm Reid, there's one scene in particular where something traumatic happens, and she is very good in that one scene in particular. Yeah, so speaking of the whole toxic relationship thing, you could kind of look at the whole movie as a metaphor for trying to get out of like an abusive relationship and the difficulties of that when people maybe don't believe you or when someone has this much power over you. So it does have kind of deeper themes going on as well. One thing that I think would have been interesting to touch on that wasn't touched on is the idea that it's difficult to leave a toxic relationship when you still love the person, because I never felt like Elizabeth Moss loved this guy. And I think it would have been a bit more complex and a bit more real if she still had feelings for him. And
if he had any positive attributes about him. But from what we can gather, he was just a bit of a knob.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest flaws of the film, is there's basically no characterization with the villain. The only thing you really get from him is he's abusive, he's intelligent, and he loves her to an obsessive degree. Yeah, but there's no real, like you say, there's no positive qualities to him. It's very like, yeah, he's the villain, and like he's just completely abusive. And I know that there are people out there that exist like that, but I don't know. I feel like it would have been nice to see some kind of redeeming qualities or some complexities to that.
Or just something that like gives you conflicting views on him. Like if it showed him being nice to someone else, and that could have been part of his character.
Yeah.
Just he's playing this good guy role when actually he's an abusive twat.
Yeah, so his role was a little one-dimensional.
Yeah, I feel like the film was maybe a smidge too long. It runs for 2 hours and 4 minutes, more or less, and I feel like they could have cut maybe...
I reckon about 15 minutes could have been cut.
Yeah, 10 even, 10, 15 minutes. I just felt like getting on towards the very end, it was a bit unnecessary.
Yeah.
Especially after like a certain sequence in which you think, oh, surely it's all going to wrap up now, and then there's this whole another bit coming afterwards. But, it is what it is, and it doesn't do anything particularly badly. It's just... maybe they could have wrapped it up a bit quicker.
Yeah. I think the only other flaw really is, and you'll hear loads of people say this, but there are certain things that happen in the film where you kind of have to suspend your disbelief. Not even the invisible part. That's the part that you can buy, really.
They actually have a fairly decent modern explanation for why it's.
Yeah, I like that actually. Yeah, but basically the thing that's quite unbelievable is there are times where something will happen between Elizabeth Moss and the Invisible Man, and it just doesn't make sense logically because she could easily prove it. Like there's a scene in a restaurant, and the restaurant is set today, so the restaurant will have CCTV cameras. And if they just check the CCTV cameras, the whole situation will go away. But for the sake of the story, they have to just forget about that and not prove it. But so little things like that, you're like, well, really, if you properly think about it.
Yeah, if it was in this proper modern day and age, then there would easily be a way to show that she's innocent of whatever she is being accused of.
Yeah, that's one other thing as well that impressed me about the film is the stakes were higher than I thought. Like there were some scenes where something would happen, and it really shocked me because I didn't think they'd take it that far that soon.
That kind of is why it feels so long though, because it ramps up so quickly, and then it almost culminates in the middle.
Yeah, it doesn't really have anywhere to go after that. So yeah. What did you think about the fact that obviously it's kind of a horror thriller for the first two acts, and then it sort of becomes an action movie?
It is a movie of two halves, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was good though because I feel like we got all the scares and tension that we wanted from the first half, and then maybe if it had gone on for another 40 minutes, it might have overstayed as well.
Yeah, it could have become
so it was quite a nice change of pace.
And story-wise, it makes sense because the things that she has to do to try and prove it, to prove that he exists, it makes sense for it to actually happen, like unfold the way that it does.
Yeah. Well, there are some things she does which makes me think if you had done it differently, then you could prove of this guy's existence much quicker. And I can't really go into it without spoiling it, but there are still some decisions where you just think this is one of those horror film decisions where in reality you'd probably go this route.
I think generally speaking, I thought the opposite, which was that for a victim in a horror film, she was pretty smart. And generally speaking, she made the right decisions and did the kind of smartest move possible.
Yeah, sometimes, just not always. There's still like a couple of instances where I just thought, come on now. But I'm used to it. I've seen way worse horror films that completely misuse that plot thing.
It's funny actually because when we were talking about getting Matt back up to do a video for the channel, we were looking at what films were coming out. And when I first saw that they were doing another Invisible Man film, I actually thought, because pretty much every film we've reviewed we've liked because we don't really have the money to go see bad films, like we don't want to,
or at the very least, it's been like okay.
Yeah, we haven't.
There's not been some absolute stink.
Yeah, we haven't really reviewed like a terrible movie yet, and I thought potentially this could be a really bad film because I actually haven't seen Upgrade yet. I need to watch that. So I didn't really have like, I wouldn't say I had confidence in Leigh Whannell as a director because I haven't seen anything he'd done before, and it's a premise that's been done loads of times. It's never really worked, and I thought, oh, it could be fun if this sucks to do like to just shit all over a bad movie, but it was actually really good, so I'm not complaining. Yeah. But it was unexpectedly good.
Don't worry, we'll find a bad one out there somewhere.
But yeah, so all in all, definitely recommend this one. Seek it out if you can. There's not many great horror films that come out, so I think if that's your thing, you should definitely take advantage of this while it's still in cinemas.
Especially this time of year as well. January, February time can bring in some absolute conks of a film.
Conks. Yeah, it can. So yeah, definitely recommend seeing this one.
It's nice to be back. Bye.
Nice to have you back. We'll see you in another 4 months.
4 months, yeah.
Yeah. No, we'll get you one soon. So yeah, that's our review for The Invisible Man. Let us know what you thought down below if you've seen it. Don't forget to follow our Twitter. We'll link it in the description. I put my personal one in there as well, and I'll put a link to the Fried Gold Letterboxd account, which we'll use today for the first time in months. So don't forget to go and follow all that stuff if you're interested in that. And I'll be back next week with a review of Pixar's Onward.
That's staying in.
I don't know what happened there. He's got a weird bubble in my throat.
You get emotional talking about it.
Oh, Pixar! That's it from us for now, guys, and we'll see you I'll see you in the next video.